Hey everybody, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We ask that every time. We're going to call you an honorary member of the Buffalo Plus team. Mike Giardi of the NFL Network is with us. Yes, we have to say it that way, the way your mother did in school, right,
letters,
to the kids.
G-R-D.
Yes, that's the way it's pronounced. Let's talk a little bit about the Bills. You spent a lot of time covering the Bills. The news about Leslie Frazier being gone and maybe Sean McDermott calling the plays. What's your initial reaction to that?
I guess I was a little bit surprised. Obviously, the defensive performance the last few years has been exceptional, and I know people look at the final game, and of course that's the one they want to measure everything by, but I think by and large, you can't do much better than Leslie and that defense had done over the previous couple of years, so that surprised me a little bit. As for Sean taking it over, I mean, that's where he made his bones. I don't love it. I'll be real. I like the idea of having my head coach be the overseer of everything, and I want him to be devoted on that. And if something needs fixing, then he can turn his back on this group while he fixes this group, but I don't want him constantly focused on one group, and that's something they're going to have to wrestle with. They certainly have enough guys on the staff that they could do it by committee. Someone could get elevated inside, but it does feel like Sean is trending to be the leader in the clubhouse for this.
And when we asked him about, I said, what do you want to see different, no matter who's coaching the defense? And he talked about playing with a nastiness and an edge. That really was missing from that defense, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that, and I think some of the players would have liked a little bit more of that as well from an aggressive nature. And I think Ron Rivera was talking about him yesterday, and that's what he said. You know, what do you remember about Sean as the defensive coordinator? They coached together in Carolina. He's like, aggressive, very aggressive.
We talked about that on yesterday's. One last thing on Leslie. I feel like the recency bias, like you said, clouds the judgment of what he was in charge of for 6 years. And I tweeted out, and I know you commented back, but it's just saying, like, how do you wrap your head around the fact of, like, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and be careful what you wish for some of these fans that are, like, finally changed. It's like, Leslie Frazier's a damn good coach.
Yeah, well, as you guys lived it in the aftermath of losing to Cincinnati, and if you're scrolling through Twitter or whatever, sports radio, Leslie, Ken, Sean, I mean, at various points, people wanted all those guys gone. And I always look at it like, well, first of all, you've been really successful with this group. And then I say to yourself, well, what's better out there? You're going to take some unknown 40-year-old guy that maybe he's the next coming?
Sure.
Or maybe he's a complete disaster, and now you just tore what you built down, and now you're starting from where you were prior to this whole build. I just think you have to be careful about that. Are there things that Sean, Ken, and Leslie could have gotten better?
Absolutely.
Would get better? Absolutely. And that's what they do now. They assess everything. They go over everything. How do we want to approach the way we coach, our schemes, how we draft, what players we're looking for? All this stuff gets evaluated every offseason.
Perceptions are big. Sometimes the teams will say, we don't pay attention to it, but they all knew it. Last year, this team was the Super Bowl favorites. And it really was. I mean, I won't say universally, but a lot of people were on board with the Bills.
Especially after September.
Exactly. Yeah. So let me ask this. Going into this year, with that loss, the way the Chiefs obviously have been what they are, the way the Bengals handled the Bills in that game at the end of the year, do you think the perception around the league has changed on the Bills? And you hear all the time about Super Bowl windows and that. Has any of that changed?
I think you do hear some of that, and I think it went from those three teams all mixed together, and like if you pull a hat, someone's going to, it could be this team, it could be that team, and now I think it's clear that it's Kansas City and Cincinnati. They've been in the AFC title game the last 2 years. Those are the two teams that represented the AFC in the Super Bowl. Kansas City wins it. Bills haven't gotten there, so there's that. There's also, they did something last year that they hadn't done, right? They go sign Von Miller. That's not the way Brandon's ever operated. And to people, that signal like, well, it's now, right? Well, before Von got hurt, he was playing great. He was playing like 25-year-old Von. So I understand this knee injury, but this isn't like it used to be. I think he can come back and be what he was before. Maybe it's not right away, but at some point next season, we see the old Von Miller. So I don't think the window's closed. And here's the other thing. To me, as long as Josh is healthy, healthy-ish, because he wasn't completely healthy with the elbow, you're in it. You have an elite quarterback. He's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league, and I would argue that when he's at his apex, when he's playing his best, he's better than everybody because he can do things physically that those other two guys can in Mahomes and Burrow.
You talk about Brandon adding Von Miller last offseason. He says again, no, money's tight, money's tight. He's with me. Salary cap isn't real.
Garbage.
It's absolutely totally right. They do need to add pieces.
Yes.
Like you look at the skill position players that were playing in the Super Bowl and in the on Championship Sunday. It was apples and oranges, it felt like, compared to the Bills. What could they do? What do you see them adding from your perspective?
I think the smart thing for me is just to correct the offensive line. Just be better up front. I think if you're better up front, you give Josh more time to sit back there and process, and I think that's something we don't talk enough about him, is his ability to process. I think he's really smart, and he doesn't, because he does the physical things that he does, he doesn't get credit for it. I feel like Mahomes, and I felt like I felt like in covering them the week leading up to the Super Bowl, I wanted to make that point, that he is so smart, and the things that they say about him, and I've heard some of the same things about Josh. So I think if you give him better protection, where I don't trust that guy. And the moment he sees a flash of color, all of a sudden he goes into hero mode, as opposed to, no, just sit back there and let it develop a little bit longer, because you're going to have the time, because that guy blocking for you is better than the guy who was there before. And I think you can do that in the draft. I think we've seen that you don't necessarily have to go into free agency. Like some of the tackles, McGlinchey's had one good year. It happened to be this year, and now he's going into free agency, and someone's going to pay him $20 million a year, which is what happens in free agency all the time. That's not the answer. I think you can find a better player. I think you can find someone on a rookie contract. Or maybe
not a sexy pick, but
exactly.
But one that really helps.
Yes.
Well, it's a place Brandon really hasn't invested as much in terms of the draft. You know, they got Deion Dawkins relatively early in the second round. They've spent a lot on running backs. You used an interesting word there about trust, and I asked this to Sean McDermott, and he said, no, he totally trusts. I thought Josh lost trust in his O-line last year, and then I think it impacted him to the point you do make mistakes. You see, not seeing ghosts, but you see problems before the pocket is even gone, even when he did have some protection. He's got to earn that back, doesn't he?
Those guys, you mean, absolutely, absolutely, and that's what I'm saying. There's the normal. If you trust your guys, you see a flash of color, and you're like, no,
you're still good.
He's going to handle. Deion's going to handle that. Mitch is going to handle that.
What about Spencer?
Right. And look, Spencer played through the back.
Yep.
So maybe you get a brand new Spencer, because we've seen Spencer's ceiling is pretty high. We haven't even come close to seeing that be for more than a couple games, 3 games.
Now, while we all agree that the salary cap's not real, we should ask all the general managers here.
It's not.
I do think there is one thing that is real in the cap. It's when you sign a guy, you set up that contract the way you want it or need it to be, and then to move on from that player is a massive dead cap hit. That's the one thing they have to watch.
That's real.
So one of those guys that has that now is Stephon Diggs. And the reason I bring that up, not that they're going to do anything with Diggs, even though his brother keeps trying to get him traded to the Dallas Cowboys.
I'm sure he'd love playing with.
In terms of Diggs, from what you hear or see, everybody always says, as soon as we ask the Bills guy, we love his competitive. Any issue with Diggs and the Bills? Any issue at all? You hear anything with that?
I think strongly that they would love him to tone it down just a little bit, that the public demonstrations just aren't good for the big picture, because then it leads to more questions. And I think they would love, but that's what he's been. That's what he was in Minnesota. That's what he's been even when it's going well in Buffalo. There have been times where you still feel like the energy is, I want the ball more, which you love, you want that, and maybe that just comes with maturity. He's 29 now. I don't know. Or maybe this is what he is. It's fully formed, and you just have to deal with it.
But even in Minnesota, it's Kirk Cousins, or it was, before. But it's Josh Allen.
Right.
I mean, you've got Josh Allen. You've got that guy. I don't really think there's a problem. I guess I was just looking for maybe a public kumbaya moment.
I wonder, and they would never tell us this, come in with the offensive line coach. Come in with Dorse. We sit down. You want to know why the ball didn't come to you? You see what happened there? Now let's go back to 2 games ago when the same thing happened. He held on to it. He got creamed, or he threw a ball as he was getting hit, or he got hurt. He hurt his elbow. Those sorts of things. Then you wonder why, as we go along the season, that the things that you thought were working and you wanted your team to continue to do in the second half of the season, that they had to get away from, because, again, there was a lack of protection up front. And look, when Brandon and Sean both talked about it, Sean particularly, I remember after the game, but Brandon here the other day, what did he talk about the first thing? Offensive and defensive lines. In that Cincinnati game, when you look back at it,
dominated.
We got our butts kicked.
Yeah.
And when you consider at least what they've invested on the defensive line, that shouldn't happen.
No.
He said that again this week at the podium, and he said there's a lot of depth in skill position. He goes, that doesn't necessarily automatically mean wide receiver. That can be a tight end, it can be a running back, it can be things like that. And he goes, there's also a lot of depth at pass rushers.
Why would you rule it out?
Well,
Yeah.
no, I'm just saying, right?
Sure.
Because he loves depth at pass rushers,
Sure.
and he hasn't hit on one yet.
Well, I like Rousseau.
Yeah, so do
Yes.
I. I like him.
And I think there is a ceiling there. The problem for him is, obviously, it looked great when you have Vaughn coming off the other
Yeah.
side, and then when Vaughn's gone, teams start to plan for it. They say, well, okay, Ed to a certain degree,
Right.
but the edge guy is Russo now,
Yeah.
and we have to. We'll send.
Yeah.
We'll chip. We'll send someone on that side. We'll try to influence his rush by formation. And he didn't get that same sort of performance, but again, he went from being all
Sure.
by his lonesome to now all of a sudden you're getting a little bit more attention, and there's not too many guys that can deal with that attention.
Agreed.
Now, you're a guy who knows the Patriots, covered the Patriots, you know the division. It's a fascinating offseason with quarterbacks in this division. You're talking about Mac, actually crazy move they made to put an offensive guy to coach the
Unbelievable.
quarterback.
Shocking.
Shocking that they did that. Tua, who we've seen big moments. The question is health, and then the Jets. Okay, I'm going to ask you the same thing as everybody else. What do you think is going to happen with the Jets?
I mean, they're all in on Rodgers.
Yeah.
That's what they want, and it's now comes down to whether Aaron wants the Jets, because I think Aaron will, to some degree, kind of, because of the contract, I think he does control sort of his destination
Right.
here. If he doesn't want to go somewhere, I don't think they can do that. They may also tell him, like, look, just haphazardly, like say San Francisco
Right.
somehow decides that they have the money and the will to get in on that. I don't know that Green Bay's not going to say, yeah, Aaron, I'm going to go send you to Shanahan
Right.
in the same conference and then deal with you for the next couple of years. So let's come to what's the next team on the list. But I think he controls it. He's unbelievable. I don't want this to be a distraction. No, that's all you're doing. This is the same thing you did last year. You might have done this the year before.
He's a Packers quarterback kind of
He's
thing.
holding them hostage. He's holding the whole league hostage, quite frankly, because, I mean, Derek Carr,
Yeah.
solid quarterback, should have a job by now because he's a free agent, and there's not too many of those guys that are out to be able to negotiate right now. But he's waiting because maybe he sees the Jets as the best opportunity. But the Jets say you're plan B, not plan A, because plan A is Aaron.
And in Tua, we're going to wait to see on the health. And then if not, they'll probably sign Brady, right? He tried to get there before.
Take a year off. You never know.
Lose another draft pick. Trying to get him in the meantime.
And Mac Jones, though, seriously, I mean, last year he had no real weapons. He didn't have the proper coaching. And there's all this talk about him being, they're tough to deal with and all. Do you hear that?
So he felt like a lot of his teammates did from the moment they decided that Matt Patricia and Joe Judge were going to lord over the offense, that this wasn't a good thing. Then the changes started to come in, the simplification of the offense, and they were all like, this isn't a good thing. They kept trying to tell us it was, but privately they weren't psyched about it. And then you saw it play out. We saw it in the summer where they didn't have a good freaking practice and training camp.
Yeah.
Do you understand how difficult that is?
Yeah.
Like, it's tired, guys. That and it's not like, I know their defense finished high, but it's not like their defense is this outstanding defense. And every day you're going, the defense kicked their ass again today.
Yeah.
The quarterback is running the football in training camp because he can't find guys open. So if you're a smart person with football, you take this year and Mac Jones and you throw it out. You say,
Yeah.
he's not that. Now, can he be the guy he was as a rookie? I don't know. Did they break him? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe they did. At least they have a competent offensive coordinator, play caller, someone with respect. Hired an offensive line coach because Patricia was doing that too, and their offensive line was terrible last year.
Good. I didn't know that.
So they're making an attempt without telling us that they screwed up because they'll never admit they screwed up. They've obviously moved on from those pieces. But I think Mac's got to earn his coach's trust back. I'll say that. I think his teammates still believe in him, but I think the coach has a lot more questions than he did a year ago.
One last question from me. I know we're at the Combine, but free agency's right around the corner. What are you hearing? I know you talked about possibly finding a long-term solution with Tremaine Edmonds, Jordan Poyer. What are you hearing in your kind of thoughts on where a deal or when a deal gets done?
I think both of those guys are going to price themselves out of the Bills market.
Say it louder so that this guy can hear it.
I know Poyer's gone. I still have had the thought that
I got a cup of
somehow they end up with Tremaine?
I think it's clear that Sean would like him.
Yeah.
And I think, again, they can
Correct.
On the napkin, they can
Correct.
rearrange contracts,
Correct.
and they can find the money.
They could sign them both.
Right. Yeah, they absolutely could sign them both. But with Tremaine, it feels like he's going to go out there and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I think when he goes out there and sees what happens, he's going to see a contract
like it.
similar to Roquan Smith
Well,
got.
if he sees that, he's
and
gone.
these guys are going to say, we love you.
Yeah.
You're important, but
Yep.
we don't want to go there for an off-the-ball linebacker in the middle
Yeah.
of the defense. We just don't want to do that. And I to a degree, I kind of understand it.
I understand it, but then they better go out and get a veteran replacement to be there, because they drafted a kid in Terrell Bernard who was not ready, physically not ready. They thought he was going to be that guy that could be the replacement, unless something really changes coming into camp. This is where the draft has hurt them.
Somebody did make a hot take last year at training camp.
He said Bernard's the starter next year at linebacker. Well,
It
he
was
might
a slow
be.
Thursday at camp.
See, now your hot takes are melding in together. You've got Tremaine going,
Yeah,
and
both of them.
now you could have them both right.
I could be both right.
Unfortunately, it could be the case.
Those are the best kind of takes.
I mean,
right?
that's
Those are right. Just buckle
I
up.
told
and wait.
you.
Just buckle up and wait to see what happens.
But this is where sometimes I try to warn people that while the Bills are close, you can't always draft for the immediacy of now. You've got to say to yourself, they better be looking at a safety this year, because if Hyde comes back, that's great, but he's going to be 33. And it may not be the guy who's playing. That's why I wanted to see him draft a safety last year, not even knowing all the injuries they had. And in terms of linebacker, you draft that guy that high, you have to think he could step in. Now, maybe he eventually will,
Right.
but I think that's a problem. But if those two guys are gone, that's a
Because
major
you're
part.
still in that, as I said, the window as long as
job.
Burrow
Right.
said, as long as I'm here, we're a championship-driven contender,
Boss.
whatever it is. I think it's the same thing with Josh. So, yeah, you can't just say, like, well, we'll just try this guy. It's too important of a piece to just try a guy, and then if he flames out, then you're looking for an A.J. Klein type.
But you go
when
out.
you know the limitations
I mean,
are
I
on
think
that.
they're going to be in the market for some of these veterans who get cut too. They're going to be bringing some people in, maybe on short-term deals that would work. Especially now, you do create cap space by letting a couple of your prominent guys go.
And
Tremaine is young.
but not in terms of experience. Well, how was that phrase?
Yeah.
He was young when we drafted him. He's still young.
Still
He's
young.
Still young.
But he's got a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's they're in an interesting spot in just that I think they can do enough with their cap, just with like the big guys. If you want to restructure, move Josh's money around, move Diggs' money around, all of a sudden you create $25 million.
monopoly money.
It really is.
It's monopoly money.
Again,
It's
take
like
the
the
napkin.
That's
Carry
what
the
I do.
one. There
Terry,
we go.
Terry, can I get this check? Yep,
Yes.
all good.
Yeah.
Now, I am of the belief that Carson Wentz has just become that poison pill for every team. Let's throw his contract on you, and let's see how you can get rid of him and try to make it work with the cap. He's done it with 3 teams. Now, I guess he's a free agent, so that experiment will be gone. But just seeing how general managers can tap dance around the cap after they have to cut him.
Well, Wentz is a perfect example for us that the salary cap isn't real, because he should have crippled 3 teams.
Yes.
And he didn't.
No.
And they found a way to
And the
get it
Eagles
done.
went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
weird.
That can happen.
That's weird.
He's got so many hot takes. Well,
He's on
thank
fire
you.
today.
We've got to get you some gear
Yeah.
as a proper member. And by the way,
Can I get like a co-producing?
why not?
Auxiliary member.
And you're building up the throughway miles coming back and forth.
This is true.
You'll be spending a lot of time in Orchard Park
I
this
would
year?
assume.
Well, look at that for NFL Network.
All right.
All right. Well, that's going to do it. We appreciate your time
Always a
today.
pleasure.
And always great insight on the Bills and in the division, so we appreciate it. Mike Giardi, our guest today from NFL Network. For Dan Fates, I'm Mike Catalano. Please make sure, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Hi, Jenna.
On Buffalo Plus.